Yes, we are back. More Dungeons and Dragons live streaming. Yes, we're going to be talking about the Beastmaster. Oh my gosh, that ranger really got screwed over pretty badly. So it's taken me, I would have to say, about 4 years. I knew the problem existed when it first came out because nobody wanted to play a Beastmaster for very long, and so I've been thinking about it a very long time. And it's only been recently, in the last couple of days, that I felt like I finally figured out how to make it work. Anyway, that's beside the point. Now, I'm going to put the start time for this video down in the description for those of you who want to skip past all of this. But my live streams go unlisted, which means that you won't be able to access them unless you are subscribed to my channel and you hit notifications. Then you can access the live stream. Otherwise, all of the live streams go unlisted and are available on Patreon. And that's essentially how it works. I do release an edited version of the live stream, but it does not include all of the Q&A or questions and answers at the end of my live streams. Now, if you haven't been part of my live streams before, normally what I do is I will present everything first and then I will open it up for questions and answers. And I'm going to do exactly the same thing because it's been working pretty well so far, and I don't think there's been any major complaints about it, which has been wonderful. Okay, so I'm just looking through the chat. I see that Save or Die is here. Is that you, Carlos? If it is, hi, how's it going? Leon Gunner is here. Big Kid, what do you got here, Big Kid? Why is it hiding the message? Okay, cool. Let's show that. Let's show that so people can see that. It's probably because you bolded it. That's probably what was going on. It's not bolded though, is it? I have no idea. Anyway, let's get on with the topic, shall we? I'll get myself lined up and we'll start, and I will present you with my variant rule, which I said I would do. Hi, welcome to HowtoDandD. My name is Fred Wheeler, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And specifically what I want to talk about is the Beastmaster Ranger. God blimey, did Wizards of the Coast botch that one up? I don't know how they could have made such a horrible mess. But we're going to try and fix the Beastmaster Ranger for Dungeons and Dragons 5e. And when I talk about trying to fix it, this is untested material. I am asking you to test it, and when I get an opportunity, I will test it myself. But we're going to start off there. I have always liked players who wanted to play a Beastmaster because of the fantasy of trying to capture the feeling of having an animal with them. It is often one of the most commonly played classes and archetypes I find when it comes to women who really want to have a pet. That's not necessarily always the case. Often they'll play like a druid and have some sort of affinity to animals and transforming into an animal, or the forest gnome is very popular as well. But let's get real. People like the idea of the Beastmaster quite a lot, and it was a big problem in previous versions of the game. It was incredibly powerful simply because of the number of attacks you could make when you considered your main character and when you considered the beast or animal companion that was traveling with you. So animal companions were really sort of problematic in terms of breaking the game. And so as a result, the Wizards of the Coast design team has overreacted in the other direction, making what appears to be a really cool idea not quite so cool. Now, the problem is that the Beastmaster has a few major problems. I would not say that all of the problems are, there's nothing that you can use from the Beastmaster. I feel like there's enough there that you can still utilize it in some manner, but it requires a few little tweaks and fixes to make it sort of work for anybody who even would consider playing it. And let's get real, I know a lot of people don't necessarily fully understand that having an animal with you or a beast companion does not have to have a combat focus. And unfortunately what they have done in Dungeons & Dragons 5e is all of the things you get with your Beastmaster all contribute to being better in combat, or trying to be better in combat, let's say, but they don't have a utility focus because they're assuming that the players will figure that out for themselves. So the first thing that I would say is every person or player that I have come across who's played a Beastmaster has stopped playing a Beastmaster and having a Beast companion simply because the Beast died in the first game session or in the second game session. They might have allowed a little bit of leeway in terms of their animal dying, because of course to be able to use your animal in any way with Beastmaster you have to put it in harm's way. Otherwise it's not really going to be any use to you in combat. They might have allowed it to die once or twice, and as a general rule, most dungeon masters will target an animal companion not because they're being a dick, but because it's better than targeting a player's character. If the animal companion dies, which has fewer hit points, and it's also put in the threat range, then that makes a lot more sense to target. So that's what tends to happen. And of course, as a result, beasts that the Beastmaster might have die often and quite quickly. Another major problem for the Beastmaster, which we're going to try and fix as well, is at level 3, when you get access to Beastmaster, there's nothing for a beast to do without the ranger giving up their main action. There's no inclusion of using bonus actions at level 3, that comes later. You have to give up your main action as a ranger for a beast to do something that they are probably not going to be as good at doing as your ranger. Your ranger is going to be far more powerful than an animal companion, which I don't actually have an issue with. I think that's probably how it should be. But it does mean that when you have that choice, you won't make that choice. Instead, you will leave it alone. There are no alterations to the variant rule I'm going to provide you today. There are no alterations to the existing rules. We are using all of the existing rules. All we're going to do is tack on 2 additions to the archetype. So that means that your player's handbook is still relevant, and you'll still be using all of the existing rules that are provided in the player's handbook. The only difference is we're going to bolt on 2 different rules that should help solve some of the major issues with your Beastmaster. I want to make it clear to those of you who think they might be seeing something really radical, is I am not trying to duplicate the Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 Beastmaster or Animal Companion situation or Ranger from the past. I'm not trying to duplicate that in any way, because I do feel like that was probably way too powerful, and I can understand the design team trying they don't want to duplicate the same issue that they had before. So I'm not looking at trying to do anything like that. What I'm trying to do is make it seem like the animal companion that you have, or beast that you have with your ranger, is working in conjunction with the ranger or Beastmaster, so that they have a link of some kind. And there's really only 2 things that I've really felt needed to be addressed with this. Okay, so here it is. If the beast is in melee, so in other words, if it's in the threat range of a target or an enemy or a hostile creature, the ranger will get advantage on their attacks that they make against the target that the beast is threatening. Okay, now that means that the beast does not need to take the help action. It doesn't mean that they need to make an attack. They only need to be within 5 feet within the threat range of a hostile creature or target that the ranger might want to target in some way. Now those attacks can be melee, or it could be a ranged attack, and that advantage only applies to someone like the Beastmaster Ranger. It does not apply to anybody else in the entire party. So it's not like everybody can benefit from this sort of thing. Now this is supposed to represent the Ranger and the Beast fighting as a unit. That's the whole concept behind it, right? That's part of and parcel of why you want to be a Beastmaster, is to be able to fight as a unit, as a cohesive force in some way with your animal. And that's what we're trying to duplicate in this situation. The other thing is the beast is trying to set up the hostile target for the ranger. So what it's doing is essentially distracting, and that's why we need to put our beast in the threat range. Now we need to deal with the second problem that the Beastmaster has, and that is beasts dying. So if the beast companion or animal companion dies, I want you to add on this additional rule. It can be summoned to the ranger after a short rest. Now what it is summoning is not the original physical form of the beast or animal. It is summoning the animal spirit of the animal. So whatever animal it was, because often players get attached to a particular animal, they give it a name, they try to give it some sort of personality in some cases, and they don't really want to have to keep cycling through more animals. That just feels horrible, so they don't want to do that sort of thing, and I totally understand that. So what we're going to do instead is they are summoning the spirit of the fallen animal to help them later on. Now that could be a utility focus, that could be in combat, it doesn't really matter. And what the animal spirit is trying to achieve is it's got all of the same stat block as the original beast that died. Okay, it functions in exactly the same way, you apply it in exactly the same way. The only difference is that you aren't treating it necessarily as a completely physical entity. Now when it's summoned, it's still got a physical form, it still can be touched and patted, and you can still interact with it, but it's not completely of this world. It is of the spirit world in it. And I'm taking a lot of these ideas directly from the North American Indians and from South America and a few other parts of the world where they talk about animal spirits. And I thought that was a really good way of solving a lot of those issues, because you don't want to wait like 8 hours every time your animal companion dies. And I don't think that a short rest is an unreasonable length of time. I don't think it's too short. I don't think it's too long. I think that works quite well. Now, what happens if the spirit animal dies in combat? Well, it's just going to disappear. But you can re-summon it after a short rest. So you complete a short rest, you can re-summon your animal companion. Now, you can't have an animal companion and a spirit companion at the same time. You either pick one or the other, which means it gives the player a whole lot of additional options they didn't necessarily have before. I feel like that is a good compromise with regard to this situation. Now, there are two different things I would like to point out with regard to the variant rule that I am presenting you with. There are a couple of things that I think you might want to consider. You do not need to do them, but I would certainly consider allowing your Beastmaster at level 3 to have advantage on perception checks, provided that they have their animal companion with them. I think that's a reasonable compromise. Rather than having the animal companion make a perception check and the ranger make a perception check, you can circumvent that and say, look, the animal companion isn't going to make a perception check and then try and communicate that information to the Beastmaster. Instead, we'll just mean that they work as a concert, they work together, and will give advantage on those perception checks to the ranger. And I think that's a good compromise. And I would certainly do that as soon as they become a Beastmaster. You might want to later on. The alert feat's a good idea. I don't know that I like the idea of giving a ranger Beastmaster a +5 to initiative, but I would certainly consider allowing them maybe at level 6 or a little bit further on. I think level 6 is pretty good though. The ability to not be surprised, provided they have their animal companion with them. And this is to duplicate and represent the animal companion looking for danger and warning the ranger or Beastmaster of impending problems, because most animals have a fairly good idea of how to spot danger, and I think that helps duplicate that concept. Now, those last two things that I'm talking about aren't really part of my variant role, but I would certainly think those are things that are reasonable to incorporate. Okay, now there are a couple of recommendations that I have with regard to treating the animal companion. Not the beast spirit that I was talking about, but the animal companion itself. And when I talk about that, I'm talking about dungeon masters allowing the animal companion to have death dying saves. Let them have a death saving throw, okay? Allow them to go through the same process as a player's character. I would not apply it to something like the beast spirit or animal spirit that I've just talked about. But to the actual original beast physical form, I would certainly apply things like death saving throws. I think that's a fair and a good way of allowing a dungeon master to threaten the beast but not necessarily kill it outright. It is an important character, even if it's not one of the main characters in the game. I am really hoping that people found this useful and helpful in some way. It is not play tested, so I am putting this out for you to test, and by all means give me feedback if you've used it in the past, in the future should I say. Give me feedback on that so I know how it's playing out for you. I will follow up when I get an opportunity and tell you how it played for me when I am dungeon mastering in some way. Unless, of course, I can find a dungeon master who will allow me to put in place this variant rule and try it myself. Who knows? That might well happen as well. Now, if you enjoyed this video, I have hundreds of videos for players and dungeon masters, which you're welcome to go and check out. And I have a whole lot of videos on variant rules, if you're interested in checking those out. These are variant rules that I have used in my own game, rather than a variant rule that I have never had any interaction with. So they are slightly play tested, and I have some experience using them. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing videos like this, then I have a Patreon page where you can get access to the unlisted live streams, additional content, and priority on any of the videos that I make. I have a affiliate link to the book depository and Amazon where you can buy stuff online. I get a small commission. I have a merchandise shelf as well. Make sure to share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I go live and when I publish new videos. Very important. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. Okay, I'm not gone. I am just getting my glasses and a drink of water. And we'll have a discussion for those of you who want to talk about it. I really do feel like I really like the Beastmaster. It's been sort of left to rot, unfortunately, and that's a real shame. I really feel like that was not the right move on anybody's part. Okay, so let's have a look. I do apologise. You're getting my face, for those of you who are wondering if you're going to get to see a real person. Yes, I am here. Now, I could have done this video much later on once I've play tested it, but I had to talk to a few people who are subscribers and follow me and patrons, and they said do it. So I'm putting it out there right now. Leon Gunnett, 5e screwed rangers, animal companions, and druids, among other things. Well, I suppose you could say that. I don't know that they necessarily screwed them, but it's just they just didn't make them quite as efficient and effective or powerful as they were, certainly in 3.5. I know it was a no-brainer. Everybody would try to take an animal companion when we were playing 3.5, which is sort of, it's a bit broken and also cumbersome. And we're trying to eliminate the cumbersome aspects of the game, right? Candice, hi, how's it going? I'm just going to read through Big Kids and yeah, let's have a chat about that animal companion and the Beastmaster. Big Kid, a lot of people talk BS about this subclass. My niece recently started playing one in her own group. Yeah. Now, if you look at a lot of the other classes, all of the things that I have suggested are largely things that other classes already have, other archetypes have already got. So the advantage thing with the beast is really just duplicating something like reckless attack with the barbarian. And we could say, well, then the beast is like a pool of additional hit points that the ranger doesn't have to use up. Certainly you could look at it that way, but a barbarian also has rage, which gives them resistance, so they take less damage. So that's all sort of playing in together with that. Now, in terms of getting back the ability to utilize your animal companion or beast, a short rest is a reasonable period of time, I feel, to allow to pass to call back the animal as a spirit. I think that's a really good way, and it also means you can keep, the player can keep referring to the same animal using the same name. It is essentially got less of a physical form than it did before, but it's still physical in nature while it's been summoned. And I don't think there necessarily needs to be a limit to how long it can be summoned for. It will just simply return to the spirit world when the Beastmaster decides that's an appropriate time to do that, or when it is vanquished in combat. And then, of course, you can then draw it back. What do you got here? Walrus is here. Hi, how's it going? I'm special, I guess. No, I don't know that you're special, big kid. I think a lot of people really struggle with this particular class, and that's often to do with the fact that they're still looking at it as a combat aspect rather than a utility aspect. And if you start looking at it that way, then you're going to have some problems. But I have built in, as I said, a lot of very combat-focused concepts, none of which I feel if you were to approach your Dungeon Master, they would get terribly upset by. I honestly think when I tried to do it, I was looking at it as what would a Dungeon Master accept? What would they accept at their table, and what would primarily deal with the biggest issues that the Beastmaster has? Julian, how's it going? I'm new to the channel, so I'm excited to watch. Well, welcome, Julian. I'm really glad to have you. And this is your opportunity. If there is anything you want to ask me, I will answer questions outside of fixing the Beastmaster Ranger. But, it doesn't matter whether you're a player or a Dungeon Master. This is why I do a lot of my stuff live, so you get an opportunity to talk to me. Okay, Leon Gunnett, what do you got here? The Beastmaster Ranger, the OG Pokemon trainer. Yeah, nothing better than fight side by side with your animal's better half. Well, see, that's the whole concept. That's what people are trying to duplicate, whether it be Pokemon or something else. I remember running a Dungeons and Dragons Pokemon themed one-shot, and it was quite popular amongst individuals, although I have to say that the X-Files Dungeons and Dragons game was far more popular than anything I could possibly imagine. I could never deal with 18 people at my table. It was just crazy. But yeah, then again, people are trying to fulfill those fantasies that they have, and Dungeons and Dragons often allows them to do that sort of thing. Okay, what else have we got here? My rangers would die first before letting their animal companion die, or die together. Yeah, well, see, this is often what will tend to happen, and this is why players will say, okay, I've had enough of playing the Beastmaster. I've had very, very few players stick it out with the Beastmaster. I've had plenty of players play a Ranger, but it's not been the Beastmaster, unfortunately. Akira, how's it going? I was excited as a Ranger to play Beastmaster. Ended up going Hunter. Yes, I know this is what tends to happen. Really great ideas though, Fred. I especially like the perception check, semi-alert idea. Yeah, and I think they're not unreasonable. I really don't feel like they're unreasonable in any way. And it does simplify things so you're not rolling dice and checking against two different modifiers. If you're dealing with just the Ranger's modifier rather than the Beast as well, that does simplify things to a large degree for a Dungeon Master. And that's what we're going for. And I often, look, let's get real. It's about level 6 that the Barbarian gets access to, is it Danger Sense? Which means that they can't be surprised, provided that they are raging. I think as long as they go into a rage as the first thing they do. And my provisor was, as long as they have their animal companion or spirit companion with them, in this case, then they should be able to treat an encounter as not being surprised. And this is to duplicate, what the animal is picking up in terms of its smell and senses and hearing and so forth. Not just sight, but all of the other things that an animal tends to use. They are very much playing into, when you think about an animal, its senses, particularly in the wild, are very, very good. And that's because they need to survive. Otherwise, something is going to try to attack and eat them. So, yeah, that's what we're trying to duplicate there. I'm glad that you like it. Zycam, Bubble Wrap, how's it going? Love the approach. Not OP, that's right. Fixes some of the weaknesses, yes. And yes, I know it only fixes some of the weaknesses in a clever way that makes the beast like a spirit familiar. Exactly. another Wheeler Wisdom gem to add to the collection. And that's what I was going for. I did not like the idea of having to rewrite the entire Beastmaster. I just wanted to figure out what we could tack on that you could use that would work. Walrus, what do you got here, Fred? Advantage on perception checks within 300 feet of companion in favoured terrain only. Greater favoured terrain as well. Yep, and you should make whatever adjustments you feel will work and are sensible to use. I don't actually have a problem with stipulating a range of 300 feet. I think that's actually probably fine. I have no doubt that some animals, particularly those that can fly, like a falcon or an eagle or a hawk, are probably going to be able to see and assist a Beastmaster from a lot further away than 300 feet. But if you are the Dungeon Master, you make it work the way you think it needs to work. I am just providing you with part of the tools to help you get there, because I know a lot of Dungeon Masters would like to be able to fix the Beastmaster for their players so that they will play the character archetype. Alright, Leon Gunner, what do you got here? Arcane Archer and other nature-inspired fighter are better at being rangers than the ranger in this Ed edition. Yeah, look, I'm not going to dispute that there are, in a combat focus, that there are stronger classes than the ranger. But, you know, one of the things I did notice about a ranger is they can do a lot of things automatically that fix and solve a whole bunch of problems that most other classes can't solve automatically. And one of the things I found, pardon me, I do need to drink some water. It's Friday, so let's get all of the stuff out, because you won't see me for a couple of days while I take my weekend. What I've found with regard to the ranger is they can do things like they can forage for food. You do not need to roll any kind of survival check. You don't need to go hunting. They can collect food for their party. They often can't get lost, and it is totally reasonable for a ranger to be, if they're playing in a very underdark environment, to literally be a ranger that has got a favoured terrain of the Underdark. I know that I've had players who say, look, you know, I've got to select a favoured terrain, and what sort of campaign are we playing in, and is it sort of metagaming too much for me to know what sort of terrain we might be covering in terms of the selection of my favoured terrain for my ranger? And I say, no, it's not. Otherwise, you could wind up with favoured terrain and you're wandering around in a environment you would never go near because it's not your favoured terrain. You know, if you are more wilderness and forest based or mountains based, then it would make sense that you would adventure in a location that's primarily about that. I know I've had rangers who would say, look, what sort of environment are we going to be playing in? And I say, well, it's mostly sort of like dungeons. And they said, well, is it all right if I take some sort of subterranean terrain to duplicate that? And I said, yeah, it's fine. I don't have an issue with that. Otherwise, you're never going to get to use that ability. And, you know, they don't get lost. They can find their way around. These are all very much on a utility focus, which, you know, still very beneficial for a group. They're just not very combat focused. And I think that's a lot of the issue that people have with the Ranger, is the fact that everything else seems to be very, very combat focused, and the Ranger is very light on that aspect. Okay, Akira. If I'm hiking with my dog, he always sees snakes first. That's exactly right, Akira. And that's not just... Now, he's not seeing your dog when he senses the snakes. He's not seeing the snake. He may be hearing the snake. He might be able to hear the snake because he's got very, very good hearing, far better than any human or adventurer might well have. Remember, dogs have extremely strong sense of smell as well, so that chances are that the dog has picked up the scent of the snake, or have heard the snake. Now, if the snake is not making any noise, it won't hear it, but it will smell the snake. Most dogs will probably pick up the smell of another creature well before they ever hear it or see it. And that's just how it works with real animals, right? So let's embrace that. Leon Ginnett, it's insulting, frankly. Well, look, this is why I really want to provide something for the ranger. I talked with a lot of my friends about how to try to fix this problem, and I've played around with lots of different ideas, and I keep coming back to advantage on attacks with the animal companion or beast or spirit companion in this case, maybe, threatening the target, and the fact that we need to do something about the fact that, the animal companion is going to die. It is, if you put it up in a threatened area, it is going to die. It's just how it's going to work. So we need to be able to deal with that in a way that's going to be better than waiting for 8 hours and doing a ritual and paying a whole bunch of money. Even the Find Familiar spell does not require the kind of resources that the ranger needs to expend. And not only that, it feels a bit too much on the magical sense, whereas I think what people are trying to duplicate with the Beastmaster is they're trying to duplicate the concept, not so much of a magical aspect to it, but just having an animal that you have developed a relationship with. And if you get to still communicate with the animal spirit when it dies, then I think that's actually probably a really good thing. Now, I pulled a lot of these ideas from Dungeons and Dragons 4E and the Shaman. My brother Sam played a shaman, and he used to use like a spirit companion of some kind. I can't remember exactly what it was called, and it functioned very much like this, and it provided those benefits of like advantage, and he could recall it after a period of time, which was quite short, and I've taken a lot of those aspects. I will get to your question, so if you put brackets question, actually I might go straight to that and I'll go back to where I was. So this is Joe's Got More. Joe's Got More question. So what do you like about the Beastmaster? I like the idea of the Beastmaster having an animal that they are friends with, that they've built a relationship with. I'm not really a cat person, I'm a dog person more. I like the idea of players being able to, I really enjoy the fact that I'll see a player who'll play that type of character, and I can see the kind of excitement they're getting from it. And to be honest, things like the Beastmaster and druids and animal companions will draw a bigger, more diverse range of players to your table. I can't count, as I said, I can't count the number of times women have really wanted to play these classes and found them sort of a bit boring, like they couldn't do anything. You can't really do anything unless, you give up your action and the animal does it, and it doesn't make an awful lot of sense. So I want to draw more people into the game. You know what I'm like. I want more people to play Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and I want more women playing Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and I want more children playing Dungeons & Dragons 5e, and I'm talking about years 4 and 5 upward, not years 12 upward. I want a younger audience, and I want more people playing it, and I want, it doesn't matter what colour your skin is, I want more people playing it, and I feel like this is one of those options that is really cool. It's a really nice idea. It has just not been put together in a great way. And I feel like it will certainly draw a lot more people to the hobby. And I'm all about getting more people playing. Vetro Vlad Windmaster. Coming late to the party. Okay, that's all right, no problems. Nice changes, but don't you think this could encourage players using Animal Companion as a meat shield, since they are getting back on a short rest every time? Yes, I do. I know they will. But remember, the Animal Companion doesn't have that many hit points. Okay? The Animal Companion doesn't have that many hit points. Now remember, the Barbarian is a meat shield, and it gets resistance. All we are doing is applying the concept in the form of an animal companion to the Ranger. And you might say, well, it's not comparable. Well, I kind of feel like it probably is, actually. You're getting damage resistance. Most Barbarians get damage resistance from piercing, bludgeoning, and slashing. And if they go with the which totem is it? Totem of the Bear, I believe it is. Then they get resistance to literally every type of damage that can be done. I don't actually have a problem with them using it as a meat shield. And people who play a Beastmaster don't want their animal to die, so they will pull it out of combat if there's an opportunity to do that. If it takes 1 or 2 hits and it looks like it's going to die, the chances are they will try to heal the animal companion or pull it out of combat if they need to. And I certainly know that players will use it as a meat shield, but I know a lot of players who will not risk their animal companion, and they'll want to keep it alive. So yeah, not really something I'm worried too much about. I think it is still reasonably well balanced, even though I think balance is a nonsense, because nothing that I've just done or talked about with the Beastmaster Ranger in terms of variation is even anywhere remotely as OP as playing a wizard. I love playing wizards, but they are OP as there isn't a class that is more OP as the wizard. You might be a bit squishy to begin with, but after that, there is nothing you can't do, really. Okay. Alec. How's it going, Alec? No, if I try to pronounce your whole name, I'm probably going to butcher it. Alexander. I think that's how it's pronounced. I'm a beginner, and your melee ranged attack explanations very helpful. Good. I'm glad they were. I do have a thrown weapon video as well, if you haven't checked that out. Do you have one for magic? Yes, I do. I could not find it. Would you consider making one if not? I have one on magic. Now, when it comes to magic, what you have to understand is magic works differently for a lot of the different classes. So you have to look at a class guide to see how magic works for them. Because there's ritual casting, there's just casting from a spell slot, there's cantrips which work different again. I've got a lot of spells that videos that talk about that. I do have a video on spell types. So if you type in spell types, you should get a video that talks about the different types of spells that you can have and how they work. That is your attack roll spell and your saving throw spells. Okay, so it talks about those, and that will help you a lot. But I also have done a series on very specific spells. So you can find Fireball, Lightning, Firebolt, Eldritch Blast, a lot of the utility spells like Cure Wounds, Healing Word. I've done spell videos on all of those, and I will continue to do more spell videos in the future. They're getting more complicated, and I was talking to a friend of mine, Simon, and he was asking me to consider talking about some of the more complicated spells, and I said absolutely, if you want to do that with me, and that will probably come sometime in the future. I don't know when. I can't sort of tell you specifically. Like I said, the easiest way to get me to make videos is to become patron. You can pick $1 a month. You can just pay $1 and then make a request. A lot of the patrons make requests, and I make videos for them, specifically on topics they want. Okay. Ranger is a Swiss Army knife of the classes. That's right. It is very much the Swiss Army knife. But what's wrong with the Ranger anyway? Well, if you feel like there's no problems with the Ranger, then you don't need to worry about anything that I've talked about. But if you feel like, there is something that needs to be adjusted, I feel like as a dungeon master and a player that there are some issues with the Beastmaster, and that's coming from the feedback that I got from players who played a Beastmaster. Those specific, and the fact that they would change out of Beastmaster into another class because they weren't really happy with what they were playing, and they weren't really looking to play an OP melee or combat character. They just wanted something for their beast to be able to do, and they didn't want to have to keep worrying about the beast dying because it would die so quickly. And that's what happens. As soon as you're in the front line, you're at high risk, which is why if you're in the front line, you tend to have a higher armor class and a lot more hit points. We can't really do that with an animal. That's going to cause a whole bunch of other problems. So that's just my feedback on that particular area. Big Kid, what do you got here? Dan, co-walker came by and made me miss everything. That's all right. No problems. Look, it will get edited. I've told you people before, I will put out the edited version, although I have to say that people's questions and feedback and contribution and the Q&A at the end of this live stream has been really, really good. It's really been, you've been asking really good questions and providing some really good feedback, and I love it. It's awesome. Joe's got more. What do you got here? Question. Why can't a Beastmaster have more than one beast at a time? Think Druid, but limit it to 1 per level with a total of CR of 2 increase at levels go up. So here's the thing. And this is why the design team was steering away from having multiple animals. There are spells that allow you for a short period of time to have in tow a number of woodland beasts or creatures follow you round. But it always slows the game down. It always does. And what we're looking for is, we're not looking for an army of animals. Maybe you are. Maybe that's what you're looking for. But I feel like a Dungeon Master does not want to have to sit there and have to contend with a whole lot of additional things that one player is trying to control. It's one of the issues with a player who is running a necromancer who summons lots of skeletons or zombies to fight alongside them, because now they have to make attacks with all of their skeletons and zombies. And that just slows everything down. Trust me, as the game progresses, there are so many dice rolls taking place to hit and to cause damage at high level play, and even at medium level play, and certainly even beyond. Once we get to level 5, often we have people who have extra attack. So they're making more than one attack now. They're making 2 or 3 attacks, or possibly even more. If you're dealing with something like the, If you're dealing with something like the monk, they're making like 4 different attacks. Now, clearly their attacks don't do a lot of damage, but that's a lot of dice rolling taking place. That's why people tend to not want to have a whole lot of animals in tow. It's why the design team steered away from that. It's why, as a general rule, Dungeon Masters don't want that sort of thing applied to their game. I feel like one animal companion is really what most people who want to play a Beastmaster are looking for, and they don't really need to have 8 wolves running around after them. That's what a druid does. A druid summons like 8 wolves. Candice, what do you got here? I DM'd last night for 13 players and a druid summoned 8 wolves. I wanted to cry, laugh out loud. Yeah, it's happened to me too, Candice. It happened to me when I was running the Curse of Strahd, and a friend of mine was playing a druid. He summoned 8 wolves. Unfortunately, they really changed the battlefield completely. What was supposed to be a relatively difficult encounter became just clean wipe. He wiped everything out. I think there were some players who never even got a chance to even take a turn in the first round, because everything was taken out so quickly by the wolves. So there is part of the problem, right? And it's a lot of extra logistics. May not be an issue for the player who feels like that's fine, I will roll 8 attacks all at once and I'll roll my attack as well, but there's still a lot of adding up, and it still slows the game down an awful lot. And it does change the dynamics of an encounter as soon as you start increasing numbers. Joe's got more. Good point regarding groups of beasts. Thank you, Joe. I think when you asked that question, you wanted me to explain to those people who were watching, didn't you, Joe, why a Dungeon Master or designers might not want to go that way. I know where you were going with that. I'm pretty sure I'm right. And in this, I had a situation occur in the Curse of Strahd. Same druid had summoned 8 wolves in the past. They had been bitten by a werewolf and were slowly but surely turning into a werewolf. The group knew this, but the player had so many benefits by being a werewolf, they decided they made the fatal mistake of not removing the curse. If they had access to remove curse, they could have done it. They didn't do it, and the player failed their wisdom saving throw that I had set to lose control of themselves, and they started attacking the party. And what did the werewolf do? It summoned 8 wolves and attacked the group, and the group almost got completely wiped out by them, because when they were dealing with a werewolf who was already quite powerful, who used to be a player's character, who was now being played by one of their mates, and had turned on them, and they were dealing with 8 wolves, and good lord, it's pretty brutal. So there's a lot of good reasons why you shouldn't let that sort of play out. Yeah, I knew, Joe, I knew, yeah, that's where you were going. Leon Gunnett, what do you got here? You can always buy a pack of hounds, train them and equip them to fight beside you and your animal companion. Well, yes, you could. You could always try and do that. If the Dungeon Master is open to that, I know there's probably a few Dungeon Masters who would say, no, it's too much. And other Dungeon Masters who would say, yeah, that's fine. And they're saying that because what they're going to do is they're going to slowly but surely whittle down your hounds. They'll kill off your hounds, and you'll have to go and buy some more and train some more, because the chances are they will not give the hounds that you have trained up to fight alongside you death saving throws. But I certainly think that the Beastmaster's animal companion or beast should get access to death saving throws to make it a bit more survivable. And it's a very, very simple fix. And you don't have to do anything major to it. It's really, really, really easy. Okay, look, I think we've covered everything. There are no more questions coming through the chat. I am about to lose my voice because it's almost 12 o'clock. So that's noon in New Zealand, so 12 noon. And I need to go and do some other things with my day, like look for work. And probably I will give myself the opportunity to watch through some of the other YouTubers who have presented content, which is it's been really interesting. I've had an opportunity to watch a lot of really good videos and some really appalling stuff that's the same old bollocks as before. But anyway, some guy killed John Wick's dog. It didn't turn out well. Turn well for him. No, yeah, don't kill the dog. Yeah, exactly. Yes, I'm going to get some water. I'll get some water, but I am going to cycle out. Okay, so wherever you are in the world, whether it's the morning, night, evening, look after yourself, your family, and your friends. Thank you for showing up. Thank you to my patrons. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s.